Hello guys, welcome to the last video of this tutorial on Eclipse project with JPA. Now we can write the Java code of our application. So first of all we are going to write the code of the toEntity class. So first of all let's create a new package. And a new class. Okay, let's create all the properties of this class according to this class diagram that we saw before. So the key, okay, these four properties. Okay, now let's generate getter and setter. Okay, until now this is the typical Java class. Now we have to add some annotations typical of JPA. The first of them, and the most important, is entity. This annotation says that this is a class, a Java class, to be mapped to a database table by JPA. So normally JPA create automatically the tables corresponding to the entity classes with the same name of the of each entity class, and in the default schema of the database. In this case we have in the PostgreSQL database two schemas. One is the default public, but we want to create all the tables of our application in the other schema, the schema one too many. So we have to specify it into the entity class definition. To do so, we have to add another notation that is a table. Okay, we can leave the same default name of the class. Okay, but a different schema. Okay, another notation that we have to add is that one that identifies the key, the primary key of the corresponding table in the database. This is the property ID, and we have to add the ID annotation, another JPA annotation. Then we want that the value of this key are generated automatically by the database itself. So we have to add another annotation that is generated value. Okay. The value generation type identity of the strategy means that the database PostgreSQL itself will create the values of this key. Okay. Now the last annotation, specific JPA annotation that we want to use is a column. With column we can set to a property a different name to be set in the corresponding table in the database. So name gross salary. So in this case we want to use for the gross salary field in the table, in the database table, the naming convention used in the database with an underscore between two words instead of the camel case used in Java. Sorry, just column. Okay. Now, okay, our entity class is ready. So Eclipse is saying us that this entity class is not listed in the persistent file. In fact, we have to list all the entity classes managed into the persistent unit into the persistent XML file. So we can copy the full path of the class and add the class tag. Okay, point employee. Okay, now employee class is ready. The second entity class is company. So new class entity. You can copy the table annotation. You can copy the ID as well. Then the other property is CNAME. Get that set up. Okay. Now to implement the one-to-many relationship, we have to add to the company entity another property, that is the list of object of class employees that work in the company. So private list employees list equal to get and setter. Okay. Now this is the property that implement the one-to-many relationship with the employee class. So we have to add to this property the one-to-many annotation. Okay. So another annotation that we have to add to this property is a join table that is useful to specify the name and the schema of the join table that JPA will create to implement the one-to-many relationship. Well, we set only the schema name because we want that all the tables of this example will be created in the one-to-many schema and not in the default public schema of PostgreSQL. Okay, so the company entities is so ready. We have to add this class to the persistent file. Okay. Finally, we have to create a control class to test the application and to execute the persist operation on database. So we first of all create a new package, bio business object. Then we can create a Servlet class can be called with an HTTP GET request. So the method doGet will be created. Okay. Well, the class has the web servlet annotation, so we don't have to register it in the web XML file. And now we can write the code, the test code, here in doGet method. Now I'll copy and paste the code that I wrote before to not waste time. Okay, now we import all the libraries. Okay, Now let's see what this servlet do. So the first thing that we have to create is an entity manager factory that is based on the persistent unit that we defined in the persistent XML file. In fact, this method of creation method take as a parameter the name of the persistent unit here. Okay. Based on the entity manager factory is the creation of the entity manager. The entity manager is the manager of the connection to the database and of all the transaction on it. Now we create some instance of employee 1, 2 and 3 with some values to use for store in the database, and then two company 1, company 2 related to the employees. As we see in the definition of the company, each company, there is the creation of a list of employees which work in the company. So for the first company, the list include employee 1 and employee 2. The list is then assigned to the list employee list property of the company 1, and company 2 has one employee in the list, that is employee 3. Now we can begin the transaction to persist the 5 entities, the 5 instances in the database, and we do it using the method persist on each object, company 1, 2, 1 and employee 1, 2, 3, and then we do the commit of the transaction. Until the commit, all the operation of JPA are made on a copy in the cache, and only with the commit the data are persisted physically on the database. Okay, now the rows are written in the tables of database, so we can test if it's all okay by executing a query, a select on the same table, on the object company. We do it using a JPQL query, that is JPQL stands for Java Persistent Query Language, that is a language similar to SQL used by JPA. So the query is select C from company as C, that is select all the object company from the database. Then the result of the query, so the list of companies that have been retrieved in the database, is assigned to the list object, that is a list of company class, and we have 2 for cycles to print the values of company and the employees that work in the company in the console of Eclipse. In fact, we will see that with only one select, JPA retrieve the company records in the table company, and the employees that are related to the company in a one-to-many relationship. Finally, we close the entity manager and the entity manager factory object. The last instruction is only a message returned to the web page. Okay, now our project is completed, so we can start the application calling the servlet and running it on the server. Oh, it's better if we restart the server. Stop. And to be sure, clean. Okay, the servlet has been executed. This is the message returned to the web page. Now on the console we can see the values of the rows that are here. We can see first company and it's here it's employee, second company with 2 employees. Okay, now let's see what JPA has made on the database. Let's update the schema. So we can see that in one-to-many schema now there are 3 new tables: company that has 2 fields, ID and CNAME, and has 2 rows. Then we have employee with the fields ID, gross salary, name and role. And then we have a third join table, company employee, that has the foreign key of both the table, company and employee. Okay. So we can see also that there are two sequences, one for each table. So because we specified the value strategy equal to generation type identity for the IDK in each table. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.